Hey guys, how's it going? So today we're going to actually review something that we've learned in the past, and we are going to also kind of teach you how to do it by hand, but also in a calculator, and maybe show you a few things that might help you understand it a little bit better. So in the past, we learned about y equals mx plus b, and that's our equation for a line. It's called y equals mx plus b. M is your slope, and b is your y-intercept. So slope obviously means the slant that the line is at, like the incline or decline. And the y-intercept is literally where it crosses the y-axis. That is it. So our first thing, this is called slope-intercept form. So when they ask you to put something back into slope-intercept form, they're asking you to put it back into y equals mx plus b. For example, this equation here, y equals negative 2x minus 3. If they give you this equation and they say, what's the slope? You already know the slope. Your slope is the number in front of x. It's your m. And in this case, it would be just negative 2. I have a lot of students that say the slope is negative 2x. It's not. It's the number slope. It has an incline or a decline. That's it. So it has a slope of negative 2. The y-intercept, where does it cross the y-axis? That's right here. It crosses at negative 3. Specifically, if you wrote that as a point, that would be the point 0, negative 3. Okay, so that's just some basics. We're really going to hit two things pretty hard. If we give you a point and a slope, and if we give you 2 points, you should still be able to come up with the equation to the line. So for starters, let's start with this one. This one's actually really easy, but find the slope-intercept form of a line given the following information. If they give you a slope and they tell you it crosses the y-axis at negative 4, well, you already know that m is 5, and you already know that it crosses the y-axis at negative 4. Well, what is something that crosses the y-axis? That's called your y-intercept. It's just another way of saying it. So it crosses the y-axis at negative 4. So we already know that b is negative 4. So you're basically done because all you need was y equals mx plus b, which is minus 4. That's the equation of that line. It has a slope of 5 and a y-intercept of negative 4. Next, get into some more trickier stuff. If they give you a slope, that's great because we already know where to put that. But they give you a point. So you have a point and you have a slope, but what you don't know is the y-intercept. So remember, y equals mx plus b. Well, we already know something about our final answer. We already know it better say y equals m is 3, y equals 3x, but we don't know this last part. We don't know what this is, plus or minus what? Where does it cross the y-axis? So there's a formula to help you. It's called the point slope formula. Point slope formula, let me write that down. The point slope formula, and it is on your formula chart that you should be using, is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So if you have a point, we would call the point x1 and y1. So now you have everything that you need. You just plug it in. For example, y minus, well, what's y1? y1 is 2 equals m. We know what m is. M is 3 times x minus x1. We know what x1 is. It's negative 6. You're going to notice a double negative sometimes. A double negative makes a positive. So here we go. The next step, you're going to want to distribute the 3 into both numbers. So we end up with, I'm going to write it over here, y minus 2 equals 3 times x is 3x, And 3 times a positive 6, remember the sign changed, so 3 times a positive 6 is positive 18. The final step, you want to get y equals mx plus b. So you just have to get rid of the negative 2. You get rid of minus 2 by adding 2 to both sides. So final answer, y equals 3x. Remember, we already knew that. 18 plus 2 is 20. That's the part that we did not know. And that's your final answer. Okay, I decided to put a problem in here that was ugly, which is this next one, because sometimes not all problems are really pretty. And we're going to solve it the exact same way. So again, they give you a point and they give you a slope. So automatically we're going to use the same point slope formula. So I'm going to label my point x1, y1, and I know my slope already. So y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. And the only thing that makes this problem difficult is the numbers don't work out pretty. They actually have fractions and things that we're not comfortable with. So if you take a look at your problem, let's plug things in. Y minus y1, which is 2, equals your slope, negative 1/4, parentheses, x minus x1, which is 5. Now remember what we said. We already know half of our answer. The answer is y equals mx. We know m already, negative 1/4 x, but we just don't know b. So we don't know what b is, plus or minus b. That's the question. Okay, so the next part, what can we do? Well, we can distribute. So y minus 2 equals negative 1/4 times x is negative 1/4 x, and negative 1/4 times negative 5, don't know that, negative 1/4 times negative 5 as a fraction, you can put it over 1. What's negative 1 times negative 5? Well, we know that's positive 5. And 4 times 1 is 4. Okay. Next and last step is to add. We want to get rid of that minus 2 again, right? Y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So a calculator would definitely be nice here, but let's try it out. Y equals negative 1/4 x. And the hard part, what is 5/4 plus 2? And we would be finished. Well, remember we talked about this in the past. 5/4 plus 2, make it a fraction, over 1. When you're adding or subtracting fractions, the common denominator is a big problem. So if you remember from the first week of school, we taught you how to combine fractions, adding and subtracting, using that butterfly method. 4 times 1 is 4. 1 times 5 is 5. And 4 times a positive 2 is positive 8. So your answer to that would be, that's 8 plus 5 is, I want to say 13. Don't judge me if I'm wrong. And that's it. So that's your last part. What's 5/4 plus 2? It is positive 13/4. So that problem is difficult because it has fractions. All right. Next, solving these problems. So this is exactly the same. The only difference is they did not give you slope, which makes you have to do one more extra step. You have to find slope. So if you remember, the formula for slope is, so m, or slope, is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And remember, that's on a formula chart, which you always get to use. So here's 2 points. How do we label them? Well, I call this x and I call this y. and I call this x, and I call this y. But this is my first point, so that's x1 and y1. This is my second point, so I call it x2 and y2. So previous lesson we had, we always stressed that the formula already has a bar and two minus signs in it. So that's where you should start, the bar and two minus signs. Okay, plug in stuff. Y2, where is that? Well, that's right here. It's 1. Y1, that is -6. That's a double negative. X2 is -4. And x1 is -5. So they both have double negatives. So this becomes 1 plus 6, which we should know is 7. And this becomes -4 plus 5, which is -4 plus 5 is 1. And 7 divided by 1 is 7. Okay, that's not your answer, but that is our what? That's our m. So we now know that our slope is 7, and we need a point. Remember, like last problem, let me pull that up. Once you have a slope, go to the easy problem. Once we have our slope and we have a point, we can solve the entire equation till the end using point-slope formula. So pick any point you want to. These numbers are probably a little bit easier, so I'm going to go with these. I'm going to make this my new x1 and y1. You could use either point. It doesn't matter. I just like these numbers because they're a lot smaller and they're a lot easier. And we're going to plug them again back into this formula. So let's go for it. Y minus my new y1, I chose to be 1, equals slope, which is 7, times x minus x1. x1 is -4. Okay, we're going to notice a double negative appeared right here, so we'll make that a plus. And let's finish it. So y minus 1 equals, remember the 7 would distribute, so that becomes 7 times x, which is 7x. And 7 times +4 is +28. And now we add 1 to both sides. Final answer, y will equal 7x, which we already knew earlier. Our slope is 7, plus 29. There is mx plus b. Okay. We're doing one more of these. And again, I told you I'd show one that's easy, like we just did, versus one that's difficult because it has fractions. So let's go ahead and do number 5. Okay, so again, this is x1, this is y1, this is x2, this is y2. Using our slope formula, which we talked about above, right up here, find slope. So it's going to be our bar and our two minus signs. And it's going to be y2, and then y1, x2, and then x1. So we have a double negative here. So we know that's going to be 4. And -3 minus 9 more is actually -12. And we should know that -4 over 12 reduces, because 4 goes into 4 one time, and 4 goes into -12 -3 times. So this is our slope, final slope. So again, we know part of our final answer. Y has to equal, and y equals mx plus b. That would be -1/3 x. We just don't know the last part. Okay, so now that we have everything, plug it into, we have a point, I'm going to stick with this one, and a slope, and we're going to try it out. So y minus y1 equals m, x minus x1. All this is about using formulas correctly, guys. So here we go. Y minus, what's our y1? Well, I'm going to use this point this time. It's a little easier. Y minus a negative 2 equals our slope. We solved that. It was negative 1/3 times x minus x1, which is 9. Okay, let's solve it. I know this is plus. I have to distribute this. So let's see what we get. This would become y plus 2 equals negative 1/3 times x is negative 1/3 x. And negative 1/3 times a negative 9. If you struggle with that, again, side problem. Negative 1/3 times negative 9 as a fraction would be over 1. Negative 1 times negative 9. Negative times a negative is positive. 1 times 9 is 9. 3 times 1 is 3. And 9 over 3, or 9 divided by 3, is 3. So what is negative 1/3 times a negative 9? It is a positive 3. Final step. It's really close to finished. Y equals mx plus b. We have to get that plus 2 out of there with a minus 2. And there's our answer. Y equals negative 1/3 x. And then 3 minus 2 is positive 1. And that's it. That's what we were expecting. Negative 1/3 x, and we were missing that last little piece. We found out what it was. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to show you is a calculator shortcut to solve these. If you struggle with doing it by hand, I mean, not to replace your knowledge, but I do want to show you how we can do this, if you didn't already know. So in your calculator, we like using spreadsheets. So you would go to New, you would go to your spreadsheets, call this X, call that Y, and you can plug in your 2 points. If they give you 2 points, that makes it really easy because you can just type it in. For example, let's do our first problem. It was, not first one, but this one right up here that we solved, and we got our answer. So our 2 points are negative 5, negative 6. So I'm going to type that in. Negative 5, negative 6. And the second point is negative 4 and 1. Okay, so if you hit, I'm going to go up here now. If you hit Menu, Statistics, Stat Calculations, and look, y equals mx plus b. So we hit that button. We called our x column x and our y column y. Hitting enter twice. There it is. And check out what we have. Here was our final answer. Y equals mx plus b, or 7x plus 29. And it tells you m should be 7. So mx, that would be 7x. Your b should be positive 29 plus 29. That's a lot easier. Saves you a lot of time as well. Now, what would happen if we did it for these 2 points where we have fractions? Well, it'll still do it for you, but the only issue, you're going to have one small problem, and I do want to show it to you. So let's go ahead and do the same thing. So New, we don't want to save it. Go to Spreadsheets, call it X, call it Y, and plug in our 2 points. They were 9, negative 2. And the other one is negative 3, 2. Okay. It's 9, negative 2, and negative 3, 2. So here we go. If we hit the same process, we go to Menu, we go to Statistics, Calculations, mx plus b. Calling it X, calling it Y. Here you go. So remember our answer, where is it at? It's right there. So you're going to get m is a decimal. It's negative 0.3 repeating, but that is the same thing as negative 1/3. If you run into that problem, you can always find out what this fraction is as a decimal. What is negative 1 divided by 3 in your calculator? And you would get negative 0.3 repeating. B, they said, is positive 1. And it is. It is positive 1. So that's a way to do that in your calculator. The last thing I wanted to show you guys is what happens when you had point slope. So I'm just going to fold this paper real quick. Bear with me. This paper does not want to fold right. All right, this problem we did here, where they give you a slope and they gave you a point. That's a little more tricky. One thing I do know, a little trick you can do is if you really wanted to, you could graph the point negative 6, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's negative 6, positive 2. That's right there. You can use slope. This is a little tricky thing, but y'all know slope is rise over run, correct? So 3 rise over run is your slope, and you can make that a fraction. That would be 3 over 1. So you could actually go from your point and you would go up 3 and to the right 1. So from your point, you would go up 3, and over 1. And what is your second point? Well, that would be negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the point negative 5 and positive 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So negative 5, I'm sorry, I've been off the screen the whole time. So you can rise 3 from your first point. We used our slope to go up 3 and over 1. Where's that new point? Well, it's negative 5, 5. So look what you just did. You now have 2 points that you can plug in your calculator. Negative 6, 2, and a second point of negative 5, 5. And just to show that to you, I'm going to try to do it here. Let's change that to negative 6, positive 2. And the other point would be negative 5, 5. All right, and let's look at what we get. They say M is 3. We got that. And B is positive 20. We got that. So if you want to use the calculator, there's ways to make it work. But I'm just trying to give you little ways to do things. So again, for this one, when you start off at 5, 2, you can plot that point wherever 5, 2 is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and up 2. And use your slope. Negative 1/4. That's down 1 to the right 4. So down 1 over 1, 2, 3, 4. So down 1 over 4. So that point would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1. So you can take 5, 2 and 9, 1, plug those in the calculator, and also get your equation. All right, guys, sorry for the long video, but I really want you to understand this stuff because it's going to come back to haunt you in the future.